Hey guys, welcome back to the video. In this video, I'm going to be ranking all the characters from The Boys. Before we get into it, let me know your top 10 characters from The Boys in the comments down below. Also, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any time of new video or go live. But to wasting more time, let's get into it. Alright, so starting it off with Allister, I actually think he's a pretty interesting character. I thought his inclusion in season 2 is really cool, but I would say that Allister he's just a good character. I think that's what's going to happen with a lot of the characters in this show is that they're just all good. They're all characterized well, even if they're small side roles. They're all utilized as well as they can be, so they end up being in good. But Ashley, I think that she does go in great. She is one of the best characters of the show in general. I just love her arc, and it's not even like it's that blatant of an arc. She's always been a side character, obviously, but the way that they just utilize her, and even in the season finale when Homelander makes her take off her wig, she is like going crazy as well, and she can't handle much more of this. So I'm really excited to see where they go next season, especially with her deleting the video of Maeve. And she also has Ashley too, which is her assistant. And then we have A-Train. Honestly, I think most of the boys and the 7 are going to end up being in best of the best, so I don't want to put him in best of the best just yet, and I might move it up later, but I think for now I'm going to put him at great. I think A-Train's a really good character, and season 3 really elevated his character for me personally, just because it felt like, especially compared to season 2, it felt like he had an actual arc. Season 1 he had an arc, but it wasn't that apparent, but here they really just took that arc from season 1 and brought it all the way over to season 3, and I really love it. And then we have Becca Butcher. I don't even know where she would really go. I would probably put her at like the very bottom of good. I think she's a good love interest for Butcher. I think her inclusion in the story is good. I honestly don't think anyone in this show is meh or bad, other than like maybe some like side characters that I feel like we should have gotten more of. But Becca, I think she played a role in the story. I love how she's utilized in season 2. And then obviously along with Ryan, they have a big effects, which we saw in season 3, the finale. And I really just love their inclusion in the entire show. They know when to step away, and I think that's what's so good about both Ryan and Becca. But next up is one of our main characters of the entire show, Billy Butcher. He is easily best of the best. Top 2 characters, of course, in this entire show. He's phenomenal. I mean, I really love what they do with Billy Butcher. I don't think there's much to say on him, just because he's a Billy Butcher. Like, they've really, over the course of the show, made you love him, hate him. I feel honestly pretty indifferent towards him now, because he's done so many good things, but he's also done so many bad things. And I'm really excited to see where they go here, because obviously at the end of season 3 his brain starts to leak from all the V, and the doctor says that he only has 12 to 18 months to live. So I'm very excited to see where they go. Maybe season 4 will be the last season, but if it's not, then maybe he'll take compound V. There's so many possibilities, so I'm super excited to see where they go the future of this character, especially just the fact that he's been the main one, or technically Huey was the main character in season 1, but Butcher has been the character we've consistently been around and seen his arc change, of course, other than Homelander, which we'll talk about later in this video. But next up is one of the most underrated characters in the entire show, Black Noir. I do think that he goes probably at the bottom of best of best. This season, season 3, they really characterized him way better than the past 2 seasons, and they really made me feel emotional for a character that doesn't really talk at all, and I love that they can do that. The animated parts of Black Noir's like mind and how they play all that out, I think it was in like episode 7, is absolutely perfect. And then obviously he does die in the finale, but Eric Kripke, the writer of the show, did say that they're planning to bring Noir back. So I have a theory that it'll probably be something along the lines of like the Homelander clone. That's what happens in the comics. Well, technically Noir is already a Homelander clone in the comics. It's just that in the show they completely changed the backstory, but they could make him a Homelander clone now, since technically he is a superhero. Like, the mantle doesn't die, and remember, like, they can make lies up to the public, so they can just be like, oh, Noir is safe, but obviously Vought knows that it's just a replication or a duplicate of Homelander. Next on the list is Crimson Countess. I'm gonna put her at meh. I mean, she's a character I'm pretty indifferent towards. She's just there. I mean, obviously all the teammates from Payback, I think that's what the team is called, Soldier Boy's team, all of them are here to just be killed off, obviously, and so they're kind of just here to elevate Soldier Boy's story. I like her use, but in general I do wish we got just maybe a little bit more context behind her and Soldier Boy. We knew that obviously they were like fake lovers, kind of how Maeve and Homelander were lovers, and so I think that was interesting. Those parallels are very cool. I think it was like episode 4 or 5 where I think it was 5, where Soldier Boy gets out and he explodes Crimson Countess. That's where the deal starts with Butcher and stuff like that. So I really like her inclusion in the show, but as a character she is pretty mediocre. I feel like they could have done just a little bit more with her. Next up is Doppelganger. I think Doppelganger is just a meh character. I think that characters in the meh tier are mostly just going to be ones that they're just there for a little bit. They're either there for our enjoyment or strictly story reasons. They really have no real character characterization around them. For example, there is another character called Mesmer, which we'll probably get to sometime later in this video, but he is not only there to move the plot along as a side character, and he's not that much of a main character at all. He's not part of the Seven, he's not part of the boys, anything like that, but he's still characterized very well in my opinion. And so I think that's what separates these lower level side characters. Eagle the Archer, I do think Eagle the Archer is just a meh character. Again, meh doesn't mean they're bad, they're just average in there for the story. And then we have Frenchie. I think Frenchie goes in great. I'd probably put him right behind A-Train just because I think season 3 made A-Train way better and made Frenchie decline just a little bit. So I think before I would have put Frenchie above A-Train, but I think for now Frenchie's gonna stay there. I was so wrong about his arc in this entire season, by the way. The first 3 episodes came out and I was really like hating on that arc, and it was the only thing really about the show that I wasn't the biggest fan of. I didn't hate it, but I was very just I didn't really like it. But in all honesty, Frenchie has been one of my favorite characters since season 1 and 2. I definitely feel like season 3 they made him kind of go on the side arc that I didn't necessarily like because they separated them from the boys, and I understand that most of the season the boys are all separated, and that was like the big part of the finales. They're all together again, right? That's fine with me. But I also liked when they started bringing Kamiko into storyline, and that's kind of where the emotional punch came in. So that's why I still like Frenchie a lot. I don't hate the character by any means, but I just definitely feel like compared to seasons 1 and 2, I do prefer Frenchie from seasons 1 and 2 compared to season 3. But next up is Grace Mallory. I think Grace Mallory is a good character. I'll probably put her at the top of good. Her inclusion in season 3 is fairly minimal, especially compared to season 2, but I also do like how she's used along with, again, Becca and Ryan. Well, not Becca in season 3, but Becca in season 2 and also Ryan in season 3 is they knew when they needed to leave the story. It wasn't overly drawn out on their characters. They knew that they didn't really have to characterize them that much because they already play such small roles, and they could have over-characterized them, in my opinion, taken time away from other characters, but I'm glad they didn't. It feels like they knew exactly what they were doing when crafting these characters and building these relationships. I really just also love Grace Mallory's connection to Soldier Boy. That's something that was explored, I think, in episode 3 of season 3, where they're right about to break Soldier Boy out. I think that was awesome, and that also led to obviously flashbacks of Payback and all that kind of stuff. I really like Grace Mallory as a character in terms of how she's utilized in the story, and they really do a good job of not only making me feel for a character, which they did in that episode where the flashbacks of Soldier Boy, but she's also just essential to the story with Ryan. Next up is Gunpowder. I actually think Gunpowder is good just because that fight was absolutely insane. I don't have much to say about Gunpowder, but the image is still stuck in my head where Homelander like zaps through the car and then Gunpowder's face is like cut in half and it just slides down with the car. That is a haunting image, but I absolutely adore that fight. Next up is Homelander himself. He's easily the best character of the show in my opinion, especially after this season. I think seasons 1 through 2 I would have said Billy Butcher, but I think this season Homelander takes the cake for me just because number one, that mirror scene, just the twig is about to snap, that whole thing going this season, and they did it from literally episode 1, and there was only like 1 or 2 episodes where where Homelander wasn't really at the forefront there, and it was episodes 6 and 7, I would say. He wasn't in them as much as the other episodes, but I still absolutely love what they do here, and even when he's not on screen, you can feel the impacts of him, and anytime he is on screen, you're literally fearing for your life. I just really like what they do here, and I think it's very interesting the way and the direction Homelander's story is going in, especially with the repercussions of what Ryan's choices were in the finale, as well as what Butcher wants to do. I think it's safe to say that Homelander is one of the best villains of all time. He's easily the best superhero TV show villain in my opinion, but on top of all of that, I think he might just be my favorite villain of all time, at least top 3. Our next up is Hugh Campbell. I'd probably put him at the very top of good. I think the relationship between him and Huey is like the most wholesome relationship in this entire show, and just the way that even in the finale of season 3, where Huey kind of realizes all the stuff his dad did for him, and then the rocky relationship they have in season 1, it's just a great closing arc. Even though Hugh isn't in season 3, if I'm not mistaken, it's just a good arc. And next up we have Huey Campbell. I would probably put him at like 3rd best of the entire show. He is just absolutely awesome. His character arc in season 3 alone is top tier, and I just really love also his relationship with Starlight and the whole empowerment arc. I think that's a great arc for Huey, and also just his relationship with Starlight overall, and that's really what carries seasons, like through seasons 1 through 3. It's something that's always been a consistent problem or like storyline going on. Like it's something that's been happening since season 1 that I still just absolutely love. I think Huey is one of the special characters in this show because in season 1 he's like primarily the main character, then I would say in season 2 it's Billy, and then in season 3 it's Homelander, and I like how they make these subtle switches, but none of those three characters actually like change or get worse in quality. They always seem to improve, even if they're not the face of the season. And since season 1, of course, Huey hasn't been like the main focus, obviously, as much as he was in season 1, but I still think that his arc is noticeably better, and it gets better through every season. And I noticed that with all the other main characters, which is why I love this show so much, because they can take all three of the characters and they can still have different focuses every season, but they still have a good enough arc to where you're still very engaged with their characters, even though they're not the center focus. Next up is Kenji, which is Kamiko's brother. I would put him at a pretty good character. I would put him at top of good just because of his effect on Kamiko, but also the action scene that's implanted into my head is the one where Stormfront literally rips his hands out so he can't use his powers anymore. I also just love the arc of Kenji and Kamiko through all of season 2. But of course, we have Kamiko next. I think Kamiko is at the best of the best, especially after this season. I would probably put her above Black Noir just because she's been built up for longer. I think that her arc, I think season 1 is where she's at her worst. I think season 2 she's at her best. And that's not to say season 3 isn't good, but I just think Kamiko felt like she was in season 2 more. That's why I would put her better in season 2 than season 3. But the arc in season 3 definitely hits a lot more for me, just because she kind of realizes that even though she doesn't have the V, that's not what's making her a monster, and she herself isn't a monster. She just really wants to protect the people around her, and that's why she takes the V. And I also think that's a big difference between Huey and Kamiko, and why Starlight got the V for Kamiko, not Huey, because Huey wanted it for the wrong reasons. And that's why I like Kamiko's arc so much. And just, I think that's what makes all these characters so interesting, is because they can bounce off one another so well. Next, we have Lamplighter. I actually think he's a good character. I would put him at like probably right above Allister. I think Lamplighter is absolutely sick. His powers are cool. The hospital scene is absolutely awesome in season 2. And the part where he kills himself in the headquarters of the Seven is absolutely mind-blowing. And I really love how they contextualize his character in such a small amount of time. Of course, he does play a decently big role in season 2, but that doesn't mean he's a main character. Obviously, he was only in season 2, but the time that he was there, I could really feel emotion for his character. And I love the way that they build up every single character here, and the Lamplighter is no different. Next up is Madeline Stillwell. This character just makes me laugh every time, just because I can never take her seriously. I would probably put her right above Lamplighter. Her impact on season 1 is absolutely insane. And then obviously she dies in the finale of season 1, but it's just absolutely crazy. I don't have much else to say. She's like the CEO of Homelander's mommy issues, and it's just hilarious. Every time I think of her character, I can't help but laugh about it. But next up is Mesmer. I actually mentioned him earlier in this video. Honestly, honest to God, I'm putting Mesmer probably at great, just because I do think that Mesmer is a crazily good contextualized character. I think it was in season 2. It might have been in season 1. I think I'm messing the seasons up here, but I absolutely love the way they use his character. Him wanting to meet his daughters, him kind of falling off as a hero, and just the overall downsides of being a hero that's basically lost everything. Yes, he's mainly there to move along the story, but when he's not moving along the story, his character actually feels like we can feel emotion for him. Like he still has somewhat of an arc going on, and I can really, really respect that from the writing standpoint, because it seems like they actually cared about this character. It wasn't just a story plot moving thing. Next up is Mother's Milk. I'll put him at best of the best, right below Kamiko, I think, just because I think Kamiko's arc in season 2 is absolutely awesome, and season 3 just elevates all of it. I think Mother's Milk, he wasn't really interesting in season 1 to me, but season 2 and especially season 3 with the connections to Soldier Boy and all of these other things, it's just, you feel so much for his character, and he's trying to balance so much at once that his character is just so perfectly executed, in my opinion. And I think that his impact in relationships with people like Butcher, Huey, Starlight even, I think just the way that those all change through the seasons is done perfectly. I think his relationship with Starlight is one of the most underrated this entire show. They are always there for one another, and I love the dynamic between and all the other characters, because he really doesn't like to take from anyone. He's also grown so much as a character through all of season 3, so I'm very excited to see where he goes next, especially if Butcher does end up taking Compound V, which would be crazy. Next up is Popclaw, and we all know the scene that we think of when we think of Popclaw, so I'm just gonna put her at probably the bottom of good. Story-wise, she doesn't really have much to do. She's mainly just a catalyst for A-Train's arc, but I still think she's a good character. And next up is Queen Maeve. Sadly, she's super sidelined in season 3, but I would put her at probably like right in the middle middle of great. I'm actually gonna move Mesmer down to good. I probably put him at very top of good. But yeah, Queen Maeve is great. I really love her character. And in the end of season 3, of course, it looks like she's not gonna be in the show anymore, sadly. It does look like, obviously, she lost her powers doing the Soldier Boy thing. She also lost her eye, broke her arm, all that kind of stuff. But it looks like she's gonna be moving onto a farm with Elena, and I'm happy for her, you know? I think she's gone through hell and back in the show, and I'm very, very happy to see her finally have her little happy ending. I absolutely loved her fight with Homelander. I thought that that's one of the best fights of the entire show, and just that whole final battle, it has some awesome moments, and they really do enhance the dramatic aspects of it, and they did that mainly in the Maeve and Homelander fight because obviously they have history through all 3 seasons. But again, I really just like what they do with Queen Maeve. I'm disappointed that she didn't get that much screen time in season 3, but I thought what she was in, she was utilized really well, especially for not having like a secondary arc. Next up is Orion. I would honestly, in general, just put Ryan at a good character for now. I do think after next season is going to end up being the best of the best because Ryan is going to be an absolute menace. Of course, at the end of the season finale, season 3, Ryan teams up with Homelander, or he chooses Homelander in the season finale, but at the end, him and Homelander basically come out to the public. I think in season 4, Ryan is going to have to pick between Homelander and like basically destroying the entire world or saving the boys and stuff like that. So I think that dilemma will be really cool, and I'm excited to see where they go with the future of Ryan. Season 2, I think he's great. Season 1, obviously, he's not there until the very, very, very end. But I don't know. I think Ryan's arc in season 3 is remarkable just because he's barely in the show, but he still has a great transformation, and I'm excited to see where the transformation goes from here. Now, next up is Soldier Boy, and this one might be a hot take, but I'm going to put him right behind Huey as best of the best characters. I think he's one of the best written characters, and the fact that he's introduced in season 3, but is written more efficiently, I guess, than a bunch of other characters in the show says a lot. Jensen Ackles probably gives one of the best performances of this entire show. Soldier Boy overall is just a funny as hell character, and I really just love what they do with this Man Out of Time story. Obviously, it's cliche, but they make the jokes actually feel realistic. Like it feels like something someone from that time would say, and it meshes really well. His banter with Huey and Butcher and Homelander and just his one-liners are absolutely undefeated, and I really just love what they do here with Soldier Boy's character. I also like the ending a lot because they open it to like if they want to bring him back in season 4 or 5 they can, but he's also just put under the gas for right now, so I think that'd be super interesting to see what they do with him in the future because he has a lot of potential. But at the same time, I think if he stayed in the gas chamber, I wouldn't really be mad. Moving on, we have Stan Edgar. I think Stan Edgar goes at the bottom of great. I think he's just an absolute menace. Giancarlo Esposito, I think that's how you pronounce his name. He is absolutely phenomenal. He kills every role that he's in, and here it's no different. In season 2, he's the most menacing he's ever been. I'm very, very excited to see where Stan Edgar goes from here, if he'll actually return, because they did show him in the recap of the season finale. But next up is Starlight. I would probably put her right above Mother's Milk, just because I think seasons 1 and 2, her arc is so strong that it outweighs MM's arc in season 3, as well as Black Noir, obviously. But I do think that Starlight is just a very interesting character because season 1, it definitely feels like at the forefront. Season 2, she's definitely still in the forefront, but it doesn't necessarily feel like she's as important as season 1, because of course she's the catalyst for this entire show, so of course you gotta put respect on that. But I really feel like in season 3, she becomes more of a pawn. She becomes more of a thing where, okay, does this character need her? Do we need this? We need her to do that. It doesn't feel like she's doing really stuff on her own. It feels like she's always moving for the story, never for her own character, which isn't a bad thing. Characters are needed to do that, but I do think that drags Starlight down just a little bit. I would probably put her top 4 characters of the show if season 3 had just utilized her a little bit better overall. But moving on, we have Stormfront. I think Stormfront goes in the great category. I would probably put her above, or right, but actually I'll put her right above Frenchie. I think A-Train's arc through seasons 1 and 3 is so good that he just edges out Stormfront to be number 1 and great. But Stormfront is absolutely insane. I was rewatching season 2 before season 3 came out, and she's just a whole menace. She literally does not care. She's a Nazi. She literally couldn't care less about anyone. I'm gonna be honest, I did think that they would reveal a Stormfront as Homelander's mom in the season finale to kind of have another twig for him to snap through, but I do remember that Soldier Boy said that he and Lady Liberty did their thing at Herogasm. So I thought that was something that they would do. They didn't necessarily do that, but I like her inclusion, especially going into season 3. And she's one of those things where that scene on the roof where Homelander's trying to save that girl from jumping off, and then he's like, no, jump off, after Stormfront, of course, dies. And I don't know, she's just such a great catalyst character, and I think she just works really well in the grand scheme of this show. Next is Supersonic. He's only in a few episodes of this season, but his impact once again is crazy. Homelander blasts his absolute face off screen, but we got to see the remains. It was kind of scary. And then we have Suzanne Raynor. I will put Suzanne Raynor probably somewhere in good. I put her right above Lamplighter just because I do think that her head popping scene is iconic. I'm pretty sure it's the first one in the entire show. And overall, her impacts and the whole thing of like not wanting Compound V in the army, stuff like that, I think that storyline is very, very interesting. And I think season 2 has a lot of great political storylines. I think season 3 didn't really focus on that as much, of course, with Soldier Boy. But I think that the use of these political storylines, like the more realistic political storylines when it comes to higher ups, government, all that kind of stuff, I think they did a great job with it. And of course, Newman and Raynor are very important to that. All right, next up is The Deep. Absolutely insane. I'm gonna put him at the very, very top of great. I think I'm gonna move A-Train to best of the best. I think he borderline makes best of the best characters just because his arc is phenomenal. But back to The Deep. I don't have much to say about him. The Deep is just a funny character. There isn't much else to say. His arc is good through seasons 1 through 3, but he carries the comedic aspects when it comes to just one character being an absolute idiot the whole time. All right, next up we have Translucent. He got exploded by Huey in the first season, still putting him at the bottom of great. Just the way that they really utilize him in terms of being like the first soup experience that Huey has, and that really kickstarts a lot of the stuff between Butcher and Huey. And I think his story impact is so great. That's why I'm gonna put him at great. But finally, we have Victoria Newman. I think this is a hot take too, is very bottom of great, just because at the end of season 2, they teased her having a bigger role because we saw that she was the one exploding heads. And it's the end of season 3, episode 1, Huey caught her exploding someone's head, but then she was basically sidelined for like the entire season. At the end, we find out, like season 3, the finale, we find out that she's going to be Singer's vice president in his campaign, and she's obviously working with Homelander, and she gave Homelander Ryan's address. And so I think her role is becoming more important, and I'm happy they don't waste time on her because they definitely could have made her more prominent and then not do anything with her at all. That would have been 10 times worse in my opinion. But I definitely do feel like they've just been teasing us with her, but I do think that she will get a lot more screen time next season, especially with the Ryan stuff playing out. I'm excited to see where she goes because she's one character that's just an absolute menace. Like, she can just pop anyone's head she wants. But guys, that was my entire ranking for all of the boys' characters. Let me know your top 10 characters in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.